With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown.
And I am Yolana Weeks.
Our top stories: St. Kitts Nevis Climate Minister takes on Climate Week engagements in New York.
St. Kitts and Nevis to host the 19th Caribbean Week of Agriculture. Local service providers, hosts and DJs encouraged to submit proposals for Sugar Mass 54. Refurbishment of health centers critical to St. Kitts and Nevis's broader strategic health plan.
U.S. Senator raises questions over ExxonMobil's partnership, seeking to build high-performance state entities in Grenada. Internationally, Donald Trump reiterates we're close to a deal on Gaza during talks with Erdogan. Now, the details. The United Nations Climate Week in New York is currently underway, taking place from September 21st to 28, 2025, under the auspices of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The event coincides with the United Nations General Assembly, bringing together business leaders, government officials, and civil society to accelerate the transition to a clean and fair future. The 2025 theme is Power On. Minister of Sustainable Development, Environment, Climate Action and Constituency Empowerment of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honourable Dr. Joelle Clark, reflected on her time at Climate Week in a post on social media. Minister Clark shared that at the onset of the week's activities, there was a heavy focus on women's empowerment. Dr. Clark delivered a statement on behalf of the Caribbean Community CARICOM at the United Nations High Level on Women in commemoration of the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, and reaffirmed the region's commitment to ensuring the safety, protection, and promotion of the rights and freedoms of women and girls on Caribbean islands and across the world.
In the Caribbean community, we strive for political culture that prioritizes women in decision-making and leadership, evidenced by our 3 democratically elected female heads of government who we commend and celebrate, but we acknowledge that we still have far to go. Noting this, last Friday, St. Kitts and Nevis, through our co-leadership with Ireland, facilitated the passage of the resolution on the revitalization on the Commission of the Status of Women, a renewed commitment to women and girls. Translating intention into action can only be sustained with legislative and policy-backed reformations. As such, our region remains steadfast in the cultivation of gender-responsive policies and legislation and the review of outdated laws that perpetuate discrimination. Excellencies, we must recognize that equality has to be budgeted for and planned for, especially for SIDS with limited fiscal space. CARICOM calls for increased accessible international financing that incorporates the needs of women, for gender-responsive climate action that acknowledges the pivotal role of women and girls in leading the charge against climate change. And we emphasize the need for a paradigm shift in our educational sectors and digital systems in alignment with the needs of women and girls. CARICOM recommits its policy towards gender empowerment, resourcing through gender-sensitive climate financing and accelerating the full force of political will. Another 30 years should not greet us speaking of potential and possibilities. Let us make good on our shared ambition to leave no one behind.
Minister Clark also met with other leaders in multilateral and bilateral engagements to discuss matters of importance to the Federation and those that benefit the Sustainable Island State agenda. Minister Clark sat with His Excellency Rafael Fortia, Secretary of the Environment and Natural Resources of the Philippines, to discuss loss and damages and the potential avenues of partnership between the countries, especially in the healthcare and renewable energy sectors. Her Excellency Vania Gava, Deputy Minister of Environment and Energy Security of Italy, to reinvigorate the Federation's commitment to 2 key outstanding projects existing sponsored by Italy and exploring the possibility of deepened technical exchange pathways between both countries. Engagements related to sustainability remain important as geopolitics continue to shift, influencing where funding is allocated. While work continues in the fight against the negative impacts of climate change, it is apparent that since the United States President Donald Trump took office in January 2025, his administration has taken actions perceived as undermining climate action and finance, which includes rollback of environmental policies, climate finance cuts, withdrawal from international agreements, namely the Paris Agreement, frozen permits for offshore wind projects, eliminated incentives for clean energy, and halted approvals for wind farms. Funding and staff at agencies like the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration have been cut, and further fossil fuel exploration continues. While some may argue that the U.S. cutting back on climate commitments does not affect the obligations of other countries, in the June 2025 summit in The Hague, NATO members agreed to a significant increase in defense spending. The 32 NATO members, including Canada, France, Italy, the United Kingdom, Germany, and Spain, among others, pledged to invest 5% of their gross domestic product annually by 2035. That pledge represents more than double the previous target of 2%, which a majority of members had already met by 2024. Larger countries, including NATO members, have continually failed to meet their climate commitments due to increased military spending and a reliance on fossil fuels. With a diversion of funds, increased emissions from military activities, and the undermining of international cooperations, it could create a trade-off where investments in military security come at the expense of long-term climate stability. Small island developing states SIDS continue to be at the forefront of the climate fight, despite making a negligible contribution to the factors that have contributed to the worsening climate crisis. The 2025 United Nations Climate Change Conference, the 30th Conference of Parties, COP30, is scheduled to take place from November 10th to 21st in Brazil. Again, world leaders, scientists, advocates, lobbyists, and civil society from around the world are coming together to accelerate climate action under the framework of the Paris Agreement. Whether it will be a conference of more pledges and less action is left to be seen.
The Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis is preparing to welcome delegates from across the region for the 19th Caribbean Week of Agriculture, CWA, a flagship agricultural event that focuses on advancing food security, sustainable farming practices, and innovation in the agricultural sector. The 19th Caribbean Week of Agriculture was scheduled for September 29 to October 3, 2025. Shaira Flanders, head of communications in the Ministry of Agriculture, during the September 24 edition of In Focus, announced that the week-long forum will feature a series of seminars and policy discussions, among other activities. The goal, she said, is to strengthen collaboration among Caribbean territories to reduce food imports and improve resilience against climate change.
We have a bunch of activities scheduled, like I said, but most importantly are the educational, the seminars, and throughout the conference in particular, we do have our partners who will be hosting several seminars throughout. Now, the beginning, which is Monday, September 29th, is our opening ceremony. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of all of the various seminars, we do begin with an official opening ceremony, yes, at 9 a.m., and that will be held at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort. All of the various events will be held at the Marriott Resort during that time. We will be using several rooms at the Marriott Resort, so we may have multiple activities happening all at the same time. And so we're going to release a schedule so that persons would be able to keep up with all of the various activities that are scheduled throughout the entire week.
Caribbean Week of Agriculture, as described by Flanders, is a big deal. Some people also hail it as a carifesta of agriculture. The hosting of the prestigious event is a significant milestone for St. Kitts and Nevis, as it reflects confidence in the country's ability to lead on issues of food security and sustainability.
Well, you know, as part of the Sustainable Island State Agenda, we want to promote climate resilience. And one of the most important things to address is ensuring that our food producers have multiple avenues to make money. We also want to make sure that these avenues help to protect not just the crops, but the livestock. And it also helps to secure the fishers' catch. How do we do that? We want to ensure that our agricultural stakeholders use innovative technology in their day-to-day operations. So, for example, when you sit to have these conversations with these stakeholders, you think about the farmers who for many, many years have only toiled using their hands in the soil. But another alternative is using greenhouse technology. You also want to consider the fact that water is a scarcity? How do we resolve the issues with water unless we introduce many different methods? And one that we know for certain is the drip line irrigation system that allows the farmers the opportunity to feed their animals with the water as well as to hydrate their crops.
The Caribbean Week of Agriculture will also feature the local marine industry. With marine resources under increasing pressure from climate change, the forum will allow regional marine sector officials an opportunity to share their vision for a resilient blue economy and demonstrate the importance of the marine industry to food and nutrition security.
This year, we are going to have what we call the fringe event aspect of the Caribbean Week of Agriculture. And so we're going to give the Marine Resources, the Department of Marine Resources in Kitts and Nevis, the opportunity as well to participate and to promote awareness during that week. We have, I believe it is the seafood night that is scheduled. Yes, that is free to the public, and it will be held at the Old Road Fisheries Complex during the week. I think that would be on the Thursday. I will back check, but we do have quite a number of activities lined up during the week.
The Caribbean Week of Agriculture 2025 is expected to have participation from government representatives, farmers, fishers, families, the youth, and other agriculture stakeholders from across the Caribbean. Over 400 individuals from overseas registered their interest in attending as they collectively seek to chart a way forward for a stronger, self-sufficient Caribbean. Ms. Flanders encouraged the full participation of the public, expressing that the event is not only for policymakers and delegates, but for everyone who has an interest in food sustainability.
We want everyone to attend. Everyone. Yes. We want the entire general public of St. Kitts and Nevis, along with the neighboring islands, are invited. They're invited to attend the Caribbean Week of Agriculture 2025 because, like I said, this is a high-level forum. This actually gives persons in the sector the opportunity to ask the questions that they've been wanting to ask. And because we are expecting over 300, well, now it's up to 400 because yesterday I was told 300. This morning I was told that it's now 400. So over 400 delegates are expected to be on island to participate, to mix and mingle, have discussions, discuss the different policies. How can we make things better for the agricultural sector across the region?
The influx of visitors from across the Caribbean to St. Kitts and Nevis for the Caribbean Week of Agriculture is anticipated to provide a short-term economic boost, particularly for hotels, restaurants, and tour operators. It is also expected to bring greater visibility to the Federation's agriculture sector and the achievements made. The 19th hosting of the Caribbean Week of Agriculture is hoped to ensure lasting benefits, such as stronger networks, new business opportunities, and greater awareness of reducing food imports through local production. This comes as CARICOM nations are tasked with the responsibility of attaining food security by 2030, against the backdrop of an initial proposal of 2025. As preparations intensify for Sugar Mass 54, the St. Kitts and Nevis National Carnival Committee encourages local service providers, including hosts and DJs, to submit proposals to supply services for the 2025-2026 Carnival season. The National Carnival Committee requires a wide range of services to cover the major events on the Sugar Mass calendar. The events include Sugar Mass Awards, Senior Calypso Semifinals, Soca Monarch Eliminations, Miss Teen St. Kitts and Nevis Pageant, Junior Calypso Monarch, Soca Monarch Finals, Panorama, Miss St. Kitts and Nevis Pageant, Senior Calypso Finals, Juve, Junior Carnival Parade, and the Grand Parade. The services required include venue and street cleaning, electrical and plumbing services, mobile washrooms, event decor, production, video production services, photography, tents, tables, chairs, catering, barricades, garbage disposal, house bands, DJs, and hosts. On the September 24, 2025 edition of Island Tea, Carnival Director Clement Monaco Garro called on local entrepreneurs and businesses to maximize the economic benefits of the festival, highlighting that 99% of money generated stays in the St. Kitts and Nevis economy.
If you're a service provider, definitely you can send your information to info at skncarnival.com, and so that we can, take a look at it, because Sugar Mass in St. Kitts Nevis is an investment in our economy, and it's an investment in our people who have, done so many great things as it relates to small and big business. And now people in the other islands are recognizing it as well. So they're now booking service providers from St. Kitts for their events in other regions. So that's what we're definitely looking for. So if you, again, just go ahead and send your proposal to info@skncarnival.com. For Sugar Mass, as you know, I think 99% of the money spent stays right here in the Federation. And if you want to benefit from or being part of that 99%, then make sure that you submit your proposal.
The deadline for submitting proposals is set for September 26, 2025. Meanwhile, Shannon Hawley, the St. Kitts and Nevis National Carnival chairperson, stated that the same group of individuals has been consistently submitting proposals to provide services for the carnival events. She invited more people to participate, emphasizing that no matter how small their service may be, one of the goals is to empower entrepreneurs and businesses.
Chairs or tables, tent rentals, barricades, toilets, whatever it is, we have a list of services that we require for Sugar Mass, and we are encouraging you to submit your proposal. We also requested proposals for hosts,
yes,
DJs for our various events, etc. What we find annually, you have the one set of people submitting.
Yes.
We are encouraging the general public, please submit your services. It is good for us to have on file, and it's good for us to utilize, no matter how small you may think that your services may be, it is good for Sugar Mass to utilize your services, and that is what it is all about. Empowering our small entrepreneurs as well as our big businesses.
The calls for proposals come as Sugar Mass 54 is expected to be one of the largest celebrations in history, attracting both residents and the diaspora community.
The aim and mission of the National Carnival Committee is to support our stakeholders, not compete with our stakeholders. This year we have a jam-packed event calendar that you can find on our social media pages, which stretches from the 16th of November, when the Sugar Mass Awards commence, all the way down to the 2nd of January. 6 weeks of non-stop entertainment for the largest national event on the calendar. We love to boast about that.
Yes.
That Sugar Mass is definitely and has grown to become the largest national event, annual event. And we're grateful for the support of not only the local public, but also so many regional and international carnival lovers who fly in and who are continuously contacting us about coming home and
Yes.
coming to St. Kitts for Sugar Mass. And we are grateful to not only the bands, but generally our stakeholders who are so invested, private event promoters, our bands, our troops, who are so invested in Sugar Mass, and ensure that people know that St. Kitts Nevis National Carnival Sugar Mass is the sweetest carnival, first and last carnival of the year.
The Health Center in Charlestown and Nevis remains at its temporary location as renovations at the original location are pending. The Health Center was relocated to ensure continued service delivery while renovation plans are being finalized. Minister of Health in Nevis, Senator Janelle Nisbet, explained to a Government at Work audience on September 18 that the ministry continues to outfit the temporary location with the necessary resources and equipment to maintain the quality of care that the people are accustomed to.
As we know, the Charlestown Health Center would have been relocated to the wards building from conversations with individuals who utilize the center as well as the staff at the center. It is an effective space. They're able to have a nice flow of care. The individuals come in, wait, they have the examinations room, etc. It's a safe, clean, and effective environment. So right now we're just focused on keeping that up to date while we plan for a new facility in Charlestown. But we always ensure that you're not disadvantaged while we work towards another goal. So all the services are accessible. We've recently added an examination table there at that center. 2 dental chair units were recently added in the past 2 years at that dental unit that's connected to that center as well.
Nisbet informed the public that services relating to maternal health, vaccinations, doctor visits, among other services, remain fully operational.
We continue to provide services such as vaccinations, pre-postnatal care to women and children, and a host of other services including free pap smear for women, which we know is essential for their health, and various doctor days across the different health centers. So all the centers are being maintained over time, so there's no big works to be done at any of the centers in particular. We have a maintenance team that continuously goes around and checks, upgrades what we need to upgrade.
Additionally, the Gingerland Health Center was relocated to the Hard Times Community Center, where its original site is being utilized as a carpenter's workshop. Meanwhile, Dr. Jensen Morton, in an exclusive interview with WINN FM, confirmed that in St. Kitts, refurbishment of health centers forms part of a broader national strategic plan for health, taking into account the aesthetics of the facilities, improving service delivery, and meeting the growing demands of the population.
We do have a national strategic plan for health, which deals with all aspects of health. We are looking at the health centers. We are ensuring that each of the health centers will get the refurbishment that it needs, such that it's able to best serve the customers, both refurbishment on the outside as well as the inside. The immediate focus is to make sure that the inside part is properly furbished, as well as the staffing for the health centers is adequate. And then after that, that's when we look at the external aspect of the aesthetics of the health centers. But no, it's not something that's neglected.
A polyclinic to serve the St. Peter's community was announced by Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew in 2024. He informed that the institution will provide blood tests, x-rays, outpatient care, and other specialized services. He also highlighted plans to utilize the existing Joseph and France General Hospital as a large polyclinic when the planned new state-of-the-art smart hospital becomes operational.
In regional news, U.S. Senator raises questions over ExxonMobil's partnership. News source Guyana reports.
3 United States senators are concerned that American taxpayers may be subsidizing ExxonMobil's operation in Guyana, and they are now seeking information over their concerns. In a letter to the chairman and chief executive officer of ExxonMobil, Darren Woods, U.S. Senators Sheldon Whitehouse, Jeffrey Merkley, and Chris Van Hollen said they have taken note of ExxonMobil's partnership with Chinese state-owned oil company, the China National Offshore Oil Corporation, CNOOC, and the Hess Corporation, now owned by Chevron, in the production of oil in the Stabroek Block in Guyana. And they are concerned that the 2016 Stabroek Block production sharing agreement may have affected the company's U.S. federal tax liability. The senators said they are concerned about the possibility that American taxpayers may be subsidizing ExxonMobil's foreign oil production, which they do in partnership with a Chinese state-owned company. It was pointed out that under U.S. laws and regulations, ExxonMobil is considered a dual-capacity taxpayer due to the fact that it is a multinational company that pays an income tax to a foreign country, while also receiving a specific economic benefit from the foreign country, such as the right to extract oil and gas. However, under the Stabroek Block production sharing agreement, the oil giant pockets 75% of the value of the oil produced and sold in cost recovery, while the remaining 25% of production is split between ExxonMobil and its partners and the government of Guyana. The U.S. senators in their letter pointed out that under the production sharing agreement, the government pays ExxonMobil's Guyana income taxes out of the government's share of the oil profits. In the current circumstance, the senators have suggested that the rules prohibiting U.S. companies from claiming foreign tax credits to lower their U.S. tax bill for payments that amount to subsidies from foreign governments should apply. The U.S. senators contend that ExxonMobil may not be entitled to shrink its U.S. tax bill through any foreign tax credits for payments made by the government of Guyana for its taxes. They added that payments to a foreign government in exchange for an economic benefit are not considered taxes at all, and thus cannot qualify for a U.S. foreign tax credit. The senators acknowledge, however, that special rules allow dual-capacity taxpayers to divide up such payments into creditable taxes and not creditable payments. They said while it is not difficult to distinguish between taxes and payments for economic benefits, current rules allow contracts to be structured in a way that blurs the distinction. The loophole is a particular boon to big multinational oil companies, the senators noted. They argue that closing the loophole would save U.S. taxpayers an estimated $71.5 billion over 10 years. They said big companies like ExxonMobil do not need any more government subsidies. The senators said Republicans added even more with their One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which included a $167 billion handout to companies like ExxonMobil that ship jobs and profits overseas, as well as a special $427 million carve-out for the oil and gas industry to limit or avoid the corporate alternative minimum tax that is intended to prevent companies from erasing their tax bill with special breaks. In putting forward a total of 7 questions, the U.S. senators said they would like to better understand whether U.S. tax dollars are subsidizing a partnership with China to drill for oil overseas. The senators also want to know if ExxonMobil provided income tax returns to the government, and if so, for which years. They also want to know if ExxonMobil claimed any U.S. foreign tax credits on any payments to the government of Guyana in 2024 and or 2023, and whether the PSA makes a distinction between taxes owed to the government and payments for economic benefits. The senators also want to know ExxonMobil's rationale for including the Chinese company Sinopec as a partner in its 2016 production sharing agreement with the government of Guyana.
Seeking to build high-performance state entities in Grenada, Primetime Caribbean has that story.
Also big tonight, trying to get government-controlled statutory bodies better managed and more efficient is said to be crucial to the Grenada government's good governance agenda. Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell saying at a conference of statutory bodies that it is not merely a talking point concept, but it's for real.
As we seek to build high-performing public entities, we must be guided by the principles of the oft-quoted good governance, transparency, and accountability. They are not optional. They are essential pillars of public trust and institutional effectiveness.
In Grenada, they are hoping to put the days of inefficient, wasteful spending and corruption behind a not-so-great history, sometimes of statutory management. Richard Duncan is a government economic advisor.
And how optimistic are you with what we are working with in terms of capacity and everything, that we could be successful in lifting the governance level of these important governments?
I'm an optimist. I believe that if you design a system well enough and you set out on building it over time, there will be setbacks, there will be weaknesses, there are risks facing all the initiatives that have been undertaken to raise the level of governance. But if we have started with training your directors, that's a place to start. If you look at ongoing professional development, that's a good place to continue. And by these conferences, awareness is created, confidence is built, empowerment is enhanced, and you will necessarily meet with success.
Aaron Moses, another government advisor, signals what has gone before in the management of these bodies must be no more.
Operators in government seem to think that because they are vested by the people, that they can do what they want when they want. And there are many instances of direct interference. I mean, quite often I would say that you have had statutory boards instructed to hire X, Y, Z persons. Some of them may not be appropriate to the needs of the institution, and you have managers who do not have the strength and confidence to say, I'm sorry, but there is no strategic fit here.
The Grenada Prime Minister telling this week's special conference the importance of statutory body success is central to that of the entire government.
Our state-owned enterprises collectively are entrusted with billions of dollars worth of assets to manage on behalf of the public. So they must operate with clarity of purpose, with sound oversight, and a commitment to delivering value to the people of Grenada.
Many delegates at this week's conference suggested progress is being made, signaling that maybe the bad old days will soon be behind them.
Your assessment of where we are with corporate governance and governance among our statutory bodies.
There has been marked improvement in the level of director education and accreditation.
At the end of the day-long session, which included special group sessions of corporate governance, fiscal management, risk management, and value-based management, Minister of Finance Dennis Cornwall telling Caribbean News the conference's mission might have been met.
It has been a very, very good one in that it shows where we are at. It brings out some of the challenges that we still face in the statutory bodies and state-owned enterprises. And the final objective at the end of the day is to make sure that we can make our systems more efficient to provide results and delivery to the populace at the end of the day, because our customers, our big customers, are the people of our country, our citizens.
We now bring you these international reports.
Israel's war on Gaza will be high on the agenda in talks between US President Donald Trump and his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan at the White House. The two leaders are also expected to discuss trade and military deals, including a major purchase of civilian and military jets. Turkey and US relations have been strained in the past over Ankara's relationship with Moscow. Well, ahead of their closed-doors meeting, President Donald Trump was asked whether the US and Turkey were on the same page in condemning Israel's war on Gaza.
Well, I don't know his stance. I can't tell you about that. I just say that we want to get Gaza over with. I had a great meeting with the leaders of that area, of that region, generally speaking, the Middle East. We had a great meeting the other day at UNGA, as you know, and I think we're close to getting some kind of a deal done. Yeah, we want to get the hostages back. I have to get the hostages back. We're the ones that got the hostages, all of them that we have now. But it looks like there are 20 living hostages and probably 38 or so dead hostages. Pretty sad.
Well, our White House correspondent Kimberly Halkett joins us now. And Kimberly, a lot on the agenda for these two leaders, as we heard, their trade and defence ties, the war between Ukraine and Russia. But Donald Trump, interestingly, saying, I think we're close to a deal on Gaza.
That's right, Jonah. We've been hearing for a couple of days now that, or at least one day, that there is some sort of framework deal, but it has not been made public. But what is interesting is that the issue of Gaza really exposes a friction point between the otherwise warm relationship between Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Donald Trump. Donald Trump, for his part, obviously very supportive of Israel, even as he has talked about some of the casualty numbers in Gaza. But Recep Tayyip Erdogan, for his part, has been very critical of Israel, specifically in his address to the United Nations General Assembly earlier. And as a result, what we know is that Donald Trump, when asked about this, said that he didn't know the stance of Turkey's leader, even though it has been made very clear. So he really danced and kind of tried to avoid that friction point. But now behind closed doors, we expect that is being discussed, along with, as you point out, a purchase of civilian aircraft and that other big sticking point in this relationship, the sale of F-35 fighter jets that's been on hold since 2017 and triggered sanctions in 2020 against Turkey as a result of it deploying some S-400 air defense systems that have been developed by Russia. So as a NATO ally, that has been a big concern of the United States and certainly frosty relations under the Biden administration. But Donald Trump signaling that there could soon be a resolution, a lifting of sanctions, he says, almost immediately, and also indicating when it comes to the issue of the sale of those fighter jets that, in fact, there could be a success, or in other words, that the president of Turkey could be, in his words, successful in the things he would like to buy.
Microsoft has stopped Israel's military from using some of its technology for its mass surveillance program. The army's spy agency uses the software to monitor millions of calls made each day by Palestinians in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. We can get more on this now from Shihab Ratansi, who's in Washington, D.C. for us, and give us a little more on the detail on this, Shihab.
Yeah, it raises a lot of questions, it has to be said. But last month, there was a joint investigation from the Guardian newspaper, Plus 972, and the outlet Local Call, and it revealed that in 2021, the chief executive of Microsoft had a meeting with the head of that Israeli military intelligence unit, 8200, and shortly after that, the Israeli military was able to start collecting the entire cell phone communications of everyone in the West Bank, the entire population of the West Bank, and I believe it was reported that they were also hoovering up all the communications in Gaza as well to a certain extent. They could store it using a piece of technology that Microsoft offers called Azure, which gives you unlimited storage and artificial intelligence analytical power. So basically, the Israeli military could use all of these phone calls stored, it was reported, at a data center in the Netherlands. They could just go through it, replay cell phone calls, replay all the information for military intelligence, which they would then use for their military operations. Shortly after that article was published, Microsoft announced it was holding an internal review. It was also reported, though, that the Israeli military had removed all of that data from that data center in the Netherlands. And now we have the Microsoft vice president and chair saying that they're no longer giving this particular service to the Israelis.
What does this say about future relations you have between Microsoft, the tech giant, and Israel, the nation?
Future and past, not just with Microsoft, but with other web and tech companies too, because it was reported that actually Israel perhaps has already then perhaps moved it away from Microsoft, that perhaps doesn't need Azure for this particular service, and was considering using Amazon Web Services to store all this information. And certainly in the letter that we've seen, the Microsoft executive says that all the other services that Microsoft performs for this country accused of committing genocide will continue. So that's unchanged. It has to be noted there was a lot of internal pressure on Microsoft. There were protests. A lot of people got fired for protesting against Microsoft chief executives for aiding in the genocide. It'd be interesting to see whether they get reinstated. But I think for me, the main question is constantly, well, look, in this letter, it says, look, Microsoft is, first, we do not provide technology to facilitate mass surveillance of civilians. But you do have to wonder then, what was the connection between that meeting between the chief executive of Microsoft and the then head of this military intelligence unit, which then appeared to lead to the storage of surveillance and communications of civilians by a genocidal regime.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were: St. Kitts Nevis Climate Minister takes on Climate Week engagements in New York.
St. Kitts and Nevis to host the 19th Caribbean Week of Agriculture. Local service providers, hosts and DJs encouraged to submit proposals for Sugar Mass 54. Refurbishment of health centers critical to St. Kitts and Nevis's broader strategic health plan.
U.S. Senator raises questions over ExxonMobil's partnership, seeking to build high-performance state entities in Grenada. Internationally, Donald Trump reiterates we're close to a deal on Gaza during talks with Erdogan. Thank you for listening.